Hello everyone, it's Chaplain April here. I'm just doing an update today. As you can tell, I have been absent once again. But many of you don't know that my mother has been very, very ill. All started months ago. It's just been one thing after another with her since like March or April. And it's a long story. Don't know if I want to go into all of it, but my sister moved. My sister that lived here near me, pretty near me, she's lived here for the past, 15 years. And I've moved to this town that I'm in so that I could be near her. And then they announced last year that they were moving to the state that his family is from, because he had been here for many years and they just felt like they needed to be kind of near his family again, etc. So unfortunately, it was right around the time that my mom had just all her problems started. She had actually been diagnosed with cancer almost a year ago, so that had already started, but she fell twice. So she fell in early this year and broke her wrist. So that's a long story, but anyway, one of her neighbors found her on the floor of the apartments right by the main door, and took her to the ER. I can't remember. She said she slipped on something. I don't know, but she fell on her. It fell back on her hand and broke her wrist in two places. Well, she had to have surgery. And I need to backtrack. The cancer, she was already having radiation for the cancer. She had decided that she didn't want to do chemo. I don't really know why. My siblings and I have still been kind of baffled as to why. I don't know why she made that decision, because whenever she was doing the treatments, it was all during COVID, so no one was allowed to go into the appointment with her. The cats are scratching over here. They're trying to scratch. Topaz, leave that alone. What are you doing, baby? What are you doing? She would go into these appointments alone, and none of us were really hearing the whole story. What does it mean if she only does radiation and not the chemo? Because they had told her to do both together, and for some reason she didn't want to do the chemo part. And my sister remembers that the chemo wasn't gonna be as bad as what some people go through in chemo, because the cancer was small at that point. So I don't really know why she opted for that option. And when I asked her recently, she said, well, I just didn't think that my body could go through chemo. And she's never been through chemo, so I think it was just all something that she was imagining. It was just going to be her, so hard for her to do. And that was just a decision that she made. We didn't really know, I've never been through this before, so I didn't know that if she didn't do the chemo along with the radiation, that it was, I guess I knew it was more risky, but I thought that the radiation would just shrink the tumors and, she would probably be fine. But the cancer came back. So when she went to the hospital, when she had her surgery, everything got very complicated because her arm was in a sling, and she had this radiation on this part of her body where it made it really hard for her to sit. So here she was living alone, not able to really move very well. She had one arm in a sling, very painful radiation site, and then one arm to try to pull herself up and down when she was already weak. Her limbs were already getting weak. It was just a bad combination. So I had told the family, look, I don't think that she can, because I saw her. I would go to her apartment to pick her up for these appointments, and she could barely get in my car. It was that hard for her. I had to buy this little step thing for her to step up on to get into the car. Even then, she couldn't. It was just so painful. She couldn't. She'd be pulling up on this and this, and then it was like a 10-minute thing to get her in the car, and let alone get her out of the car and into an appointment. It was just, I mean, I was stunned, like how hard it was. So we got through that. She got through the surgery because they had told us that because she's left-handed, you want that wrist to heal properly. If it had been her right wrist, they might have just left it and not done surgery, but she's left-handed, so it could have healed incorrectly, and then she wouldn't have been able to write, all this stuff. So we decided, I said, Mom, you got to have the surgery. And the surgery went great. Guys, why are you fighting? Boo-boo, what are you hissing at? These two. So after that whole thing, she was in this sling for a month, living on her own. I really don't know how she did it. I don't know how she did it. I mean, she is a trooper. Then, shortly after that, she called me one day and she said, April, I'm in bed and I can't get my legs to work. And I said, what do you mean, Mom? And she said, well, I can't get my legs to go from here over the side of the bed. I can't move them to the side of the bed so that I can get up. And I was like, well, I didn't understand. Like, okay. So I drove all the way. She lived, you know, not too far, but not too close to me. Took my youngest son with me because this was spur of the moment thing. And I had to pull her up out of bed because she had this radiation site. She had her arm that was still very weak and healing from the surgery. And now her legs are locked up. So I'm like, this is all like coming, like I'm realizing that this is not going to work anymore. And I started telling my siblings, we are gonna have to move her. She can't live alone like this. This is now her second fall. So what happened was I pulled her out of bed. She's a trooper. I don't even know. I don't even know how much pain she was in, and she still did it. She wasn't even, I don't know if she was taking pain for the cancer or not. She had pain meds for the arm, but you know, they only give you so many when you have surgery. They don't, you know, pain meds are hard to come by anymore. So like she was parsing them out. I mean, it was crazy. And then, so I pulled her out of bed. She was walking around, not very well. And then I said, well, Mom, I've got to go run an errand and I'm going to come back. Well, when I was almost to my errand, like 20 minutes later, she called me again and said, April, I fell. And I said, you fell? Okay, well, can you, get up or whatever? She was like, I cannot get up. My legs are not working. So she called the same neighbor that lives across from her that found her when she fell, previously, and took her to the ER. She called him and he came over. He couldn't get her up. And so she's like, I need you to come back so you guys can try to get me up, or I don't know what to do. And so I got there and there was no getting her up. Her legs were not, they were seized up somehow. So I had to call 911. They had to come. Two strapping young, kids came and picked her up and got her, into the ambulance and off to the hospital we went. I said I wasn't going to go in detail, so I don't know. But so that's when it all kind of started, and it all just started snowballing, progressing. Because we thought originally when she was diagnosed with this cancer. It's one that you can get over. It's not like a death sentence, you know, so we were like, okay, she's going to get through this, blah, blah, blah. But we did not realize that the area that it was in, they could not do surgery. She had 3 tumors that just popped up. Like, they just popped up overnight, 3 tumors in the same area. And because of where it was located, it was in a crucial spot where they would have messed up, you know, one of her functions, if they took the tumors out. And so they couldn't take the tumors out. So long story short, where are we? She goes to the hospital about her legs. We still never found out what happened with them. It was like a muscle spasm or something, but why was it happening? You know, I don't know. I don't know. So while she's in the hospital, I'm thinking, this is fall number 2. She cannot be alone. She cannot, you know. So I'm calling around. I'm trying to find places for her. And she had told me, April, I want you to be my power of attorney because, you know, all my other sisters are living in different states now. And my brother, she could rely on him, but he was having his own like health problems and, you know, moving and things, and or thinking about moving. And so she, you know, had me do it. So I find her this place to live. She's been living in this one apartment for years and years. So my sisters come in, 2 of them, one came from Texas, one came from Indiana, and helped me, you know, get her out of that apartment. There was so much stuff. There was so much. It was really, really difficult. And for her to go to the ER and never return to her apartment, it was really difficult. It was really hard on her. We had to break it to her like as best we could. Mom, I'm sorry. We can't put you back at that apartment. We're gonna have to find, you know, somewhere where you can get help if you fall or whatever. So that was a process. So then she went from the hospital to a rehab where they were supposed to get her like completely mobile again, like working out her arms and legs and, you know, get her strong so that she can go back to independent living. Because I thought, okay, well, as long as rehab gets her there, her arm is now healed or her wrist is now healed, and she can, maybe she's not going to be walking fast, but she can be around her own apartment and, you know, do her thing. We found her this great place. We bought new furniture. My sisters helped me pick it out. It was this whole thing. And when she got out of rehab, I got her there. My sisters had already gone back home. And, you know, they brought her in a wheelchair, and she had all this new furniture. I'm showing her, Mom, look, you know, you have this new place now, and it's not all cluttered and all this. And she loved it, but I could tell she just couldn't even take it in. She was already worn out from just the drive there. And so we got her on the couch. We were getting her out of the wheelchair, and she just about collapsed on us. And I thought, oh my God, this is not going to work. She is at a independent living facility. So because I worked in hospice, I kind of know there's levels, and you know, not everyone has dealt with that. So I just happen to understand it because I know that there's levels of care and, you know, all of this. So I'm like, she's in independent living and she's not independent yet. And I thought, and I had talked to the guy, her rehab person, and I had said, now she's going to be ready, right? You guys are going to get her ready to where her legs and arms are strong. Oh yeah, it's all good. Well, it wasn't all good. So I don't know if she just was weaker than what we thought. I mean, I don't know. But people I've talked to said they've seen this all the time, because rehab, the only pay, like Medicare will only pay for, you know, a certain amount of days in rehab, and then they have to release you. And sometimes people aren't ready and they're not where they need to be. That's what happened with her. And, you know, that's the best they can do. So So for 10 days or almost 2 weeks, she just laid on that couch. We could have barely get her off the couch. So they did not have that level of care that she needed there. They had it available, but for a price. So every time someone would come to move her from the couch to the bed or the bed to the table, or like she couldn't even do those things on her own. She required assistance for that. Each time they came was another $100, $200, $300. So it was gonna cost way more for her to stay in the independent living, even though the independent living was less. But all the extra care that we had to pay for out of pocket was gonna be, it just didn't make sense. So I had to have this hard conversation with my family, and I'm like, look, she's not going to be able to live here. We have to find her assisted living. And when people hear assisted living, they hear nursing home, and nobody wants their loved one in a nursing home. Neither do I, but I do want her to have care. I was staying there for hours a day because I was afraid she was going to fall off the couch. She would not be able to get up. She would not be able to get help. Independent living they don't have like that button that you can press and someone comes. They have a chain in the bathroom and they have one by your bed, so someone will come. But other than that, if you fall and you don't have your phone, no one's going to know that you fell. And it was just a lot of things. Like when they brought her food, they were just dropping it off at the table. They weren't bringing it to her. Like it wasn't going to work. So it was really hard for the family to hear that, oh my gosh, we just got her in this wonderful place and she can't even enjoy it. She couldn't even go down to the dining room, and they had all these activities and she'd always wanted to do this, and she could have gone to play bingo, and they did all these things, and she wasn't getting to enjoy any of it. So she was on home health at that time, so I'd gotten her home health. So we had we were paying for the extra care at this place. Then she also had the home health. Well, the home health had the conversation with me that she was not at the level of rehabilitation that she should have been in. And I said, I agree, because I watched her almost collapse several times. And my brother and I are tag teaming it, staying here all day. I begged my brother. I said, you've got to come down here and stay with her during the week if you can, because I have to be home with my family. I have, I cook dinner, all of these things, and I'm trying to stay with her as much as I can, but when the kids get home from school, like I need to be there. And so he came. He was very gracious, but it was so difficult when she would get up and go try to change, or when we'd get her up, we would have to get her up, both of us, and get her on the walker, and then she could walk like to the bathroom or to the bedroom, but then she would need help. And then it would be so painful. She would be crying out. And it was so difficult for my brother to hear that. It was difficult for me, but not as difficult as it was for him. And he said, April, I cannot hear her. I can't hear mom like that. Like, this is just really hard on me. So I asked the home health, so what should we do? Well, let's put her in rehab again, and because it didn't work. So let's put her in a skilled nursing. Was it skilled nursing? I think. I don't know. It was a rehab skilled nursing type of thing. So they came and got her. They took her. She was only at this new place like a total of 10 days, and we had paid all this money to get her in there. And you can't get that money back, So I'm like, okay, Lord, let's hope and pray that this is going to work. Well, while she was in that facility, one of the tumors that she had started bleeding. unexpectedly, and they couldn't figure out why, and they had to send her from there to the hospital again. So the nurse said, you know, I've never seen this happen. I don't know what it means. So then I had to be dealing with like all of the doctors at the hospital, and I wasn't always there when the doctors would come in. So then my mom would give me, you know, whatever she could remember. And then it was all COVID, and it was just a nightmare. And then I was the only one that could be there because I was her POA, and they would only allow one visitor at a time and whatever. So I would go in there. One time the doctor came in while I was there, but most of the time the doctor would come some other time. And so they did all these tests. They found, you know, this, they found that. They found that the cancer had returned. It was just one thing after another. And like my head was spinning, like, okay, Lord, what do I do here? You know, what's the next step? And so, they transferred her from that hospital to another hospital because her other doctor was over there. Her cancer doctor was over there. And then it was just like she was in hospital and here and there. And I couldn't even remember what room she was in anymore, because she was in so many different rooms. And so it came down to the fact that the longer she stayed in the hospital, the more weak she became. And I heard the statistic that 1 week in the hospital is going to take you 10 weeks to recoup. Okay, so I had to stop filming for about an hour and a half, so I'm back. I'm trying to get back into my train of thought here. So she was very weak, and then the hospital was realizing that she wasn't getting out of bed very much, and she was becoming bedbound. And I was even in denial about that because she had been using her walker. But yeah, I did notice that it was increasingly more difficult to get her up, and using her walker, she just couldn't pull herself up. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it. She just didn't have the strength. So I was in denial about that. So I had her lined up. It took me a while to find an assisted living that was the right price, you know, all the criteria, and that would take her, that had a bed, that, you know, it's a lot of work. This is the things that social workers do. So we found a place, and that's where she was going to go. Well, it was really crazy one day. When this new place called me and they said, I'm sorry, we've changed our mind. We're not going to take your mom. And I was so upset. And I called the social worker and I said, I'm sorry, you know, I'm really upset because someone said to them that she's bedbound, and that's not the level of care that even they provide, and they are not going to take her. Well, it was a social worker that had said that to them. So she kind of explained and whatever, and I was still upset. I'm like, she was on a walker 5 days ago. So, you know, anyway, so this new place is not going to take her. Well, the hospital would no longer discharge her to independent living because she's not independent, and rehab didn't work. She can't go back to rehab because they found out that she's becoming bedbound. So rehab is not going to work. She can't go back to the skilled nursing rehab, and she cannot go back to this independent living that I had paid all this money and we had just moved her into. So that's what I was saying in my last video whenever I said that I fasted and there's times where I fast and pray for answers from God. So to understand that, or to explain that, like we don't tell God to answer us. That's not what I'm saying. We don't tell God, hey, you're giving me an answer on something, and just fast and pray about it. But when you are in a pinch like that, and you really do need an answer, and God knows you need an answer, and you know, you can't wait on an answer. You have to have an answer. He totally understands. That's when I fasted and prayed. And I said, Lord, I can't take care of her because of the level of care that she's requiring now. And my house is full. We have 4 kids here. You know, I wanted her to be with me. I really wanted her to be, but just for other different reasons, it wasn't possible. So I fasted and I said, I am not going to eat, God. I am going to pray until I get an answer. And a day or 2 went by, and the social worker kept coming in and saying, you know, do you have any, you know, leads? Do you have a plan yet? Do you know what you're going to do? And I kept saying, no, I don't. And there was a second option, another place, another assisted living that it was not my first choice. And I didn't even want to give it a chance. But this guy that was working with me to find a place, he said, April, give it a chance. You need another option. So I kept trying to get her back into that one place. And I was sending all these documents and, you know, kind of arguing with them on the phone, like, you know, that's not right, what they wrote. It was just a mess. And so I said, okay, I'm going to give this other place an option so we do have a backup plan, right? Well, God sends me, and I had still been fasting and praying. I'm like, this is my mom, I can't, and they need her out of the hospital. They need the bed. They, you know, and it's getting down to the wire. And the social worker kept saying, okay, I'm going to let her stay one more day until you find a place. And this was like 3 or 4 days, you know, of just waiting. And I would go up there and visit her and stay with her. And she had this view. I mean, it was gorgeous. She was on like this top floor of this hospital. It was really pretty. And I would just look out and pray. And I'm like, Lord, I know you're going to give me an answer. You don't fail. You don't fail us. God does not fail us. People do. People will, but God will not. And he knew, you know, my back was against a wall with this. So the place that said no to her, they didn't even send a nurse, because what they have to do is send a nurse to evaluate the patient to see if she's at the level of care that they can provide. And I kept saying to them, she is. I know she is. Send a nurse up here and you will see that she will use the walker with, you know, a 1-person assist or whatever it was. And I had told Mom, I'm like, look, when this nurse gets here, I need you to get up and do this, you know, because the only other option is a full-blown nursing home, which we did not want. I didn't want to just send her to a nursing home, you know, and we had talked about that. My sisters had, you know, we'd all talked about it. So, and it's not like nursing home is the worst thing, but we just felt like it was just something we didn't want. So they refused to send a nurse. And I said, okay, God, I don't know what else to do. Well, plan B, this other assisted living happened to have a bed, and it was the smallest room they have, which I did not like because I didn't want her to be in a really small room, but it ended up working out. But this second option said, we'll send our nurse. We're just gonna, I know you want her to go here, but we're just gonna come evaluate her and see what happens. Ends up being this amazing, charismatic Christian nurse, okay? Amazing nurse. I was just blown away. The moment she opened her mouth, I was like, this person is amazing. And she's a Christian and she's charismatic. I just knew it. I knew it right away. And I asked her, I said, well, what church do you go to? And she told me, oh, this amazing church and this pastor, he's charismatic. And I'm like, really? I didn't even know about this church. Like, I never even heard about it. And, oh yeah, you know, we speak in tongues, all this stuff. We do outreaches down at Bricktown. And, you know, it was just, I was just like, oh, wow. Okay. So she doesn't even put Mom through the test. They're supposed to get her up and evaluate, and they wanted a video and all this. She doesn't even put Mom through any of that, and she says, yes, we'll take her. So what I prayed for was God's favor. I'm like, God, you have to give us favor somewhere, some way. Well, we had favor with that nurse, and we had favor with that assisted living. They had an opening, and it was like there's no other options, and it was the right price. And I said, okay, what can we do? The next morning, she arrived at that new assisted living, and we moved her in. And then I had to do another move. I had to move her from, this amazing apartment we had found now over to here, and downsize again. We had already downsized, and then we had to downsize more because it was really small room, and everyone was upset, it's really small and it's really expensive and all this. Well, she ended up being completely bed bound, so it was okay. It didn't matter how small the room was because she didn't use any of it. She was staying in bed. So God knew, God knew all of that. And she did get up once and get in her wheelchair, but that was the only time. So anyway, so this whole long story, and she's only been there maybe 2.5 months now, and I've been trying to visit her. And then, my sister felt bad for moving, and then, another sister came from Missouri and visited, and etc. A friend of ours from Costa Rica came to see her because he knew that she was on the decline, and he hadn't even been here. He hadn't come to Oklahoma in 25 years, so he never comes to Oklahoma. He always goes to Florida or other places, but he came here just to see her. So anyway, last week, just to try to finalize this story, but the reason I'm telling this story is because a lot of people on here that subscribe do know my mom, or have known my mom, or they're from Costa Rica where they pastored, and I want everyone to understand what happened. And then also my siblings can watch this, and some of them missed a couple of things, and they'll have the whole story. So you don't have to watch the whole story. You can fast forward through it. But if in case somebody needs the details, here they are. So last week, the nurse and my mom bonded with this hospice nurse. She's been on hospice ever since. So she went from home health, that's one step before hospice, and then she's been on hospice ever since she's been at this facility. Because what happened in the hospital, I keep backtracking. They knew that the cancer had returned, and mom still was saying, I do not want to do chemo. So they said, well, there's nothing else we can do. You have to go on hospice. So she signed the papers one day when I wasn't even there. It kind of made me mad that they talked to her about this when I was not there, because I don't know. But she signed a DNR. She did all this stuff one day when I was not at the hospital. And decided, okay, I'm going on hospice, and sorry. So she settled in there. We've gone through all these ups and downs with different nurses, and things happening, and things disappearing from her room. And I'm just saying all this so you guys can see how preoccupied I've been with so many things, why I haven't been doing videos, why it's been a lot. When you're someone's power of attorney, durable power of attorney. So I had to figure out all of her finances. I had to figure out where she's gonna live. I mean, it has been a lot. I was on her bank account. I had to make sure some of her bills were paid and things were finished and squared away and all, So last week, we've been going along great since she got there, but her pain has been increasing and increasing and increasing just almost by the day now. So what the nurse was telling me, this nurse that mom bonded with, and we had her on another hospice, and this nurse switched hospices, and I had to go and sign the paperwork for us to follow her to that other hospice because we didn't want to lose this nurse. She was so good, and her and mom bonded very well, and they just love each other, and they just get along so great. And I made sure that we had her. She's amazing for mom. She knew all of her pain stuff and she knew exactly what mom needed. So I didn't want to have to go through that again. She tells me last week that, well, a couple weeks ago, she told me that the cancer broke through her skin on a part of her body. So that is a sign that the cancer has really, really spread. And she said when that happens, we know that it has spread a lot and like we're getting down to the end. So I knew this was coming. Then last week she sits me down and she's like, April, I just want to let you know that since you're power of attorney, you're gonna have to make this decision soon about your mom. And here's what it is. She is in increasing pain every day. There's only so much that hospice can do with oral medicines. And we are almost at that level. So she is on like the highest medicines that we can give. Methadone and whatever. She's on 2 pain meds and her pain is still high. So what you're gonna have to decide, lucky you, is do you want her to stay alert so that you can talk to her and communicate with her, but have her in a lot of pain, possibly a 9 and a 10, because the pain pills are no longer touching the pain? Or do you want to put her on comfort? It's called comfort, end of life comfort care. And that means that they would have to sedate her and her pain would be under control, but she would no longer be able to communicate with us. So for the past week, that has been what I've been dealing with. And I told my sisters, I called them, I explained everything. Everyone's in shock, like what? We weren't expecting anything this soon, And neither was I. But the fact is she's in that much pain and we have to do something. So one of my sisters flies out here and then she and I had an argument. It was this whole thing and I'm not gonna go into that, but we resolved it and, it was just some end of life stuff. It's hard when you're the power of attorney and you make all the decisions, but you're still trying to include the family and their wishes, but then in the end, you're the one that makes the decision. So that was kind of like a power struggle we were having, and I understand, and she's someone that knows how to take care of things, and she kind of wanted to have more control. I get it. And that's fine, but mom chose me and so anyway, we had to fill out her living will, which a living will is whether the patient wants nutrition and hydration when they're dying and things like that. So we had to do that, and then but I don't think that's really going to come into play because of the way that she's dying. I don't think that's even going to be needed. I don't know if that we'll even need to touch on the living will. Maybe we will. I don't, well, maybe we will if she's, so they told us that what would happen is they would either have to put her on an IV for these stronger pain meds, and the assisted living does not do IVs. They're assisted living. They're not a nursing home and they're not a long-term care facility, so they do not do IVs. She would have to leave this facility, move her again, and the nurses don't even want to turn her over because that's how painful it is. When they have to change her, they don't even want, it's even hard to change her and turn her over because she's in that much pain. So to move her, I don't even know how we would move her. We would have to get 4 people to just go like this and put her in another bed, and then she'd have to go in an ambulance. It would just be, I don't know if she would tolerate it. And so we would have to move her from where she is to a hospice house. And a lot of people don't know that hospice is not a place. Hospice is a service that comes to you. So if you want to die at home, the hospice people come to you. So hospice has an office somewhere that all the people work out of. The doctors and nurses and social workers and chaplains all work out of this office. And then wherever the dying patient is, that's where we go. So if they're at home, we go there. If they're typically not in a hospital, because if you're on hospice, you can't get any kind of life-saving treatment. So once in a while someone will be in a hospital, but it's not hospice related. So anyway, that's a really technical thing, but typically they're at home or in a nursing home or at an assisted living. So and that's where people end up dying. You know, a lot of people want to die at home now. I get it. I would want to die at home myself. I'd be more comfortable at home. So that's a trend now. People want to be home. But there are these places called hospice houses where all the beds are hospice, and they're all terminal. They're there for end of life comfort care. And typically places like that only have about 15 beds, and they're hard to get into. And then you got to figure out, is Medicare going to pay for this? How does this going to work? And then you have to get the person there. When I have been a chaplain and I've been sent to a hospice house, the patient typically doesn't last more than 2 days, because they're already that far along and they're sedated. And then it just facilitates, it relaxes them because their pain is under control. So they relax, and then they can finally die, So she would have to go to a hospice house, but then she said the other option is some kind of liquid pain medicine. I hadn't heard this before, but then she could stay where she's at. So I just found that out yesterday. Okay, so possibly she could stay there. So I've known this for a week, but my mom didn't know it. And the nurse didn't want to tell my mom yet because my mom has anxiety, and her anxiety level has been pretty high. And she figured if she told her this, her anxiety level was gonna just really go through the roof. So I've been waiting for, and mom will tell me stuff like, I want to go back to college and I want to get better, and for Christmas I'm gonna get all these decorations done and things. And I'm like going, yeah, I know, Mom, I know that's what you want, but I couldn't say to her, but you're not gonna make it out of this. So I kept asking the nurse, well, when are we gonna have this conversation with her? Well, yesterday was the day. So the nurse called me, or I called her, and she said, yeah, I finally had that talk with Elizabeth. And she said, I just sat there with her and we cried and we prayed and talked. And so she said, so your mom now understands what is inevitable and getting ready to happen. So she said, it's time for you to kind of start deciding when you want this sedation to happen. So talk about a huge responsibility. Yeah, I mean, and I tell people, I'm used to death. It doesn't affect me like it affects other people, because I'm used to it, because I've been a chaplain for all these years. But when it's your mother, and when it's your family member, it's a little different. I still can handle it pretty well, but because and especially because I know she's a Christian, I know she's going to heaven, and I'm not worried about that at all. And with some people that are dying, you don't know, and that's your job to find out what, you know, where they are spiritually, and that sometimes is very difficult. But with my mom, I know, but she's my mom, you know, and so it's a lot more emotionally taxing. And so when my kids got home from school yesterday, I waited for them, and I told the nurse, I said, well, I'm gonna go as soon as my kids get home from school, and I'm just gonna take them with me. And they had all these plans, they needed to do things, they had homework, they had all this stuff, and I said, well, I'm sorry, we have to go today. I told them exactly what I just told you, that, you know, she doesn't have many more days where she's alert. She may not die in a few days, but she is not going to be able to communicate with us for much longer. So the three of us went up there last night, and if you can't tell, I have been crying for like 2 days. So if you think that I have been nonchalant or non-emotional about this, it's totally not true. I mean, my eyes were so swollen this morning. I had to put all this makeup on them because they were so puffed up, and you can tell here that I was crying for 2 days. Because how do I face my mom and ask her, Mom, when do you want me to, you know, tell them to sedate you now, and I'll never be able to see you again, I'll never be able to talk to you again. How do you do that? You know, you do it with God's help, I can tell you that. So last night, the three of us went there, and I thought I was handling it so well. But when I saw her and I said, Mom, the nurse told me that she told you today, and she said, yes, she did. And you know, this whole conversation started, and she said, yeah, I understand everything that's gonna happen now. And you know, I don't know what all we said to each other, but I just broke down. I just grabbed her and put my arms around her, and I just put my head like in the crook of her neck, and like a daughter would, like a younger daughter, and I just sobbed. It's like, what do I do? You know, like, I know that we're down to the wire. We don't have a lot of time left, and I'm seeing her pain. I can see it. And I mean, I've been around so many people in this position, and I know when I see certain signs that they don't have much time, and now I'm seeing this in my own mother. It was just crazy, and I just sobbed, and she patted me on the back, and she said, April, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. And you know, I love you, and you're my daughter, and I love you so much. And she's like, I'm going to heaven now, and it's gonna be great. And I'm, you know, so then we started talking about heaven, and all of that. And my kids were just laying there, like, they were both crying, and it was just crazy, you know. My kids are like, I don't know what to think, and when is she gonna die? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it was heart-wrenching. But she said, you know, I don't want you guys to be all sad. I'm going to a great place. And it's like, I know, but you're my mom. And, you know, I always call you when I need prayers. You always prays with me. And she's only 70. She's gonna be 72 on Friday. She's very young. And my dad has been gone already for 9 years. He died at 63. Like, it's just too young, and whatever, you know. it is what it is. And I've had the whole conversation with her about the chemo. Maybe you should have had it. And she said, this is my decision. You know, we've talked about all of that. And so we just had this whole cry fest, you know, last night. And then my son decided, well, let's, you know, she wanted a Starbucks drink. So my son ordered it, had it delivered to the assisted living. And so we had our frappuccinos, and we were there for like 3 hours and just talking. And it's like, what is it that I want to say to her that I haven't said? What is it that I want to ask her that I haven't asked? Because I'm not gonna be able to ask her again. And in that moment, it's like you draw a blank. You can't think. You don't know. Like right now, when I look back with my dad, I think, well, I would have asked him this if I had known that he was dying. You know, he kind of died more suddenly than we thought he would. And I would, if I could go back, I would ask him this. I would say this. I would have one more moment of this. But then when I think about my mom, I couldn't think of what I would do. I don't know. It's like, I know I am going to come up with something after she's gone, and I'm not going to be able to ask it. I just know. You know, it's like I'm trying to think of all the things I want to say, etc. So anyway, so that's what I've been dealing with. And this sedation thing is imminent, like in the next couple of days. Right now, my brother is there with her. He's been in there all day. I haven't gone yet today. I wanted him to have his time with her. And then my sister from Texas and her family are on their way right now. And then last week when Christy was here, we made some funeral arrangements. So just prayers for our family. I mean, we're all gonna be okay. It's just, you know, I won't have any parents left. I don't have any grandparents left. Now I won't have any parents. But, you know, I don't feel like an orphan. There's people that say, you know, both my parents died and I'm an orphan now. I don't feel like that. I don't feel like an orphan. Because my parents loved me. I was not an orphan. I'm not going to be an orphan. I know where my parents are, and they loved me. They didn't give me up. I'm not an orphan. You know, I just don't have that feeling. And I know some people do have that, but I just don't. I just feel like, well, my parents are in heaven now. You know, I'm not orphaned because I have God. God's my father, you know, and God takes care of everything. And so I just don't feel that way. And I don't think that anyone really has to feel that way. If you know that God is your father and will take care of you, you don't have to feel an orphan, even if you don't have parents on the earth. That's another story, but let me see, what else was I gonna say? So I just wanted everyone that knows her to know what's going on, and that she's going to be leaving us here soon. And as she puts it, she's going to be going over the rainbow. And you know, that's one of the songs that will play at her funeral and everything. And you know, she was talking about, oh, I wonder what my mansion's gonna be like, and will it have grand piano, and I want horses and all these things. And I said, Mom, you're gonna have all of that, because God designs a mansion for each person based on their likes and things that they enjoy in life and their passions. And so it's going to be designed specifically for you. And I said, Mom, that's what you're going to have. All your pets are going to be there from your life. And she started naming off her pets and the dogs she's had. She had this little turtle, and she used to tell me about that turtle that she had, and it was called Smokey, I think. And I don't know, she used to tell me about that. And then whatever dogs she had, and she's like, oh, they're all going to be there. And then Nathan, our little brother that died, you know, when he was 3 months old, he'll be waiting for her. So we were trying to talk about some of the positive things. So I will give you guys an update whenever, probably not until, you know, a week or so at least has gone by, and we'll see what happens. I don't want to say until the end because I might do one before that, but and I do want to video her funeral because I'm gonna speak, and I'm gonna say some things, and you know, it would be cool for that to be on video so you guys can see it, for all of those that knew her and knew us when we were growing up. And I actually have a new subscriber of a friend, an old friend that we had lost touch with. I don't know how he found us. He told me, but he messaged me and he said, I don't know if you remember me. And this is someone in Costa Rica. But I worked with your parents for like 5 years when they were pastors in Santa Ana. And I said, of course I remember you. And so we started chatting and everything. And so he now watches. And so there's a lot of people from my past that would be interested to know what happened with my dad, my mom, and, you know, updates on our lives. So one day I'll do a video maybe about my dad, so that, you know, people can know that too. But for now, that's the update, and just pray for us. I don't know how much of this I'm going to edit, but anyway, you know, you don't have to watch the whole thing. But thank you for watching, and just know that I'm going to be fine, because God is all I need. Like God is not going to fail me, and I just have that much faith. So you guys take care, and I will see you as soon as I can do the next video.